Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast that isn't quite ready for summer to be over. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Jason Reeves. Jason, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Morning, morning. How's it going?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Man, a beautiful Saturday in California. I'm feeling good.
All right. Okay, so usually how I like to start these things off is with a bit of an icebreaker question just to kind of get to know each other. So for today's icebreaker question, my question is, what is the oldest piece of clothing you still wear? And
Oh,
oldest piece of clothing you own and still wear?
that's crazy. That's like you're starting with the hard question. So, little backstory. Um, I've been on like a weight loss journey. So I got rid of a lot of clothes recently because
Hmm.
I lost about 120 pounds
Oh,
in the
nice.
past couple of years. Yeah.
Right on.
So what is the oldest pair of clothes I wear? Maybe I have like a poetic justice shirt
Okay.
that was back. It was like I used to be in a 3X, but I wear bigger clothes. And
Yeah.
it's a 4X shirt and it has Tupac on the front of it. And it's like a comfort shirt.
Yeah.
It's just I was like, I'm not throwing my Tupac shirt away, my poetic justice shirt away. So I wear that from time to time when I
Okay.
exercise or when I'm around the house. So that might be at least one of the oldest pieces of clothing I wear. It's like I don't know. I just love it. I won't ever throw it away, even though I'm like two sizes smaller. Like it looks like a dress on me at this point.
That's awesome. I think for me, I couldn't really think of a piece of clothing I had that was super old, but these glasses that I'm wearing currently, they're easily 12 or more years old. They're super old glasses. They're kind of cracked and falling apart. I actually have a new pair finally coming, I think next week. But yeah, I've been way overdue for the eye doctor for way too long, and finally we got a new pair coming. So that's yeah, it's been way too long.
Yeah, yeah. No, I have these glasses. No, these aren't that old actually. These might be 12 months, 18 months old,
Oh
maybe.
wow.
Not
That's
old.
not too bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad at all. And I'm probably gonna get a new pair in the next maybe 90 days anyway. So
Oh nice.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I realized that my youngest daughter is almost 9 years old, and these glasses are older than her. So I thought I probably should go to the eye doctor and get checked out.
I was gonna say, has your prescription changed any? Like,
Not that much actually. It's very slight, which the eye doctor was pretty impressed by.
yeah,
But I also got fitted for contacts for the first time ever, and
mhm,
I'll be 40 next month, so that's kind of saying something.
yeah,
And I've had glasses since I was 4, so
mhm,
I've always been under the impression that, con your eyes are meant to see out of, but your eyes are meant to be seen but never touched. Kind of like
yeah.
my friend Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec says. But and I have a big problem with trying to touch my eyes, but I fought through it, and I'm not sure how it's going to go when I go in for my appointment to learn how to put them in myself because the eye doctor put them in for me, but it's going to be interesting.
I I am not a fan of contacts.
Oh,
Like,
I'm right there with you. I've been on that boat for a long time.
can't I can't do it. Like I tried for a small amount of time when I was maybe like 27 or something like that. And I was like, nah, I can't do it. My wife can do it. Like Kimmy can do it from time to time. And even she doesn't do it that much. But I was like, nah, man, I don't want to touch my eyes at all. I don't even want to feel it.
Dude, it's so hard. I'm like you, my wife is old hat and she just can do it, no problem. I think my appointment, we went in at noon and we got done at 3. That's
Mm.
how long it took me to try to figure out how to put contacts, and it was rough, but we pushed through. And so I mean I have some coming. I don't know how often I'm going to actually wear them. We'll see how that goes, but it was a pretty cheap add-on to get glasses and contacts. So I said, why not? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be out that much. Might as well give it a shot. Just try something new. But yeah, how long is it going to last? I don't know. But I got another pair of glasses coming, so that's probably going to be the main thing that I rock. But we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. All right, man. So the concept of the show, Fueled by Weird, is basically, everything you're into, your hobbies, your interests, all that stuff rolls up and comes together to make you who you are. So what I want to know is, what are some of the things you're into? What are some of your hobbies and your interests?
Obviously comics,
Sure.
comic collecting. I've been collecting comics since I was like 8 years old.
Hmm.
Um, I've always been a big fan of like superhero stuff, Superman, Spider Man. Um, I when I first when I first got into indie comics and being a publisher, then I became a fan of like black indie comics and that whole world. It was crazy because coming up in the '90s, I'm a '90s kid,
Yeah, me
late
too.
'80s, '90s kid,
Yeah, yeah,
and there weren't a lot of black creators that you knew of.
yeah.
And even when the creators of different comics were black, because we didn't have the internet just yet, we didn't know who was who. And it was very inspiring to see stuff like the milestone stuff, like Icon and Hardware,
Oh, yeah.
and to see Tribe coming out of Image back in the day. But in 2012, when I started becoming a publisher, I became a big fan of like all the guys that I barely knew about as a kid, that I wish I knew about as a kid, like Shindo and um, of Ryan Meinerding, the head of, I think his title is head of artistic development at Marvel. I also collect toys, as you can see behind me. I got the big vulture from Homecoming back
That's
there.
awesome.
Uh, Trinity, you can see Morpheus and Trinity back there. Neo is kind of on a break. He fell down. But my biggest hobby, my most expensive hobby, is six scale figures. So I love collecting six scale figures. You can't see it, but I have the '89 Batwing, the
Oh,
size
man.
of like the six scale size.
That's
Like I
awesome.
love collecting six scale figures. It's just like an extension of my love for like superheroes, and posing them and kind of making like little scenes with them and stuff like that. Most of them I have we have sort of like a offset dining room, but we don't use it as a dining room.
Yeah,
And all of my six scales are like in there, just posed up and hanging out.
that's
So I
awesome.
collect like comic memorabilia and stuff. You can see behind me, I got a couple Funko Pops, but the cool thing is, the Funkos I collect are the ones I make from my own characters. And the toys back there, you see the Blob and Wolverine. I worked on those for Hasbro a long, long time ago. But they're from the first Wolverine Origins movie. They're like the tie-in toys or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
So when I did concept stuff for Hasbro, those were like my crowning glories because I was like, I worked on those. So, uh, yeah, I normal collector stuff, but I love, love, love my six scales. Man. Like I just every character that I like, I try to get.
That's awesome. I kind of do the same thing with, I have quite a few Funkos, but I'm kind of weird when I collect Funkos. Like, I won't collect a whole set unless it's like a set that I'm really super into, but if I've got like if there's a set that has like a certain character or two, I'll just pull those characters. So I'm kind of weird and selective with how I collect my stuff, but I get it.
I like building like the teams that I would want to see in comics.
Yeah.
So like I have a team, like it's the Wakanda team, and there's like Sam Wilson in his Captain America outfit.
Yeah.
There's Storm. There's I love the design of T'Chaka from the first Black Panther movie, so I
Yeah,
bought that one instead of T'Challa because
yeah,
it's just I like the gold and the purple with the black outfit.
yeah,
And so I have him, and then there's Killmonger, six scale, and there's who else is there? Black Adam is back there for some reason,
yeah.
and so it's like my Wakanda, my ultimate Wakanda team of heroes. So I like making the teams that I would like to see in comics.
That's awesome. It's kind of like your own what if team, kind of.
Yeah, like a what if cross universe.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, you mentioned you worked at Hasbro, and I also saw when I was kind of doing my research, you worked for Wizards of the Coast as well.
Yeah, for a little while. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you design cards or how?
So
Tell me a little bit about that.
when I was coming up way back in the olden days, I was doing turnarounds like concept design.
Yeah.
There was the game never came out, called Dream Blade, and I worked on a lot of those characters for that game. I was so excited too. It was one of my first jobs doing that, and I was like, oh, I get to finally work for Wizards, and I get to finally do like characters that people are gonna see. They're gonna make miniatures of these things, because we're so used to like D&D and like what's the other one they make? Um, I'm blanking. I'm so my memory like goes. But Wizards makes the coolest fantasy game.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought Dreamblade was going to be like an extension of that, and I was so excited working on it. But the game, I don't know, somehow it tanked or didn't come out, and a lot of my designs didn't get seen. But yeah, I worked with Wizards of the Coast for a little bit. Yeah.
And how did it go working for Hasbro? Like how did that end up coming around?
It was dope. So me and another homie, Adam Cook, who he's also worked for a lot of these same companies. And he works for a company called Super Genius now. They're a video game company. Shout out to
Mhm.
Adam, brother. Um, we used to when we were looking for work, we used to go to like different shows. Our biggest show was San Diego Comic Con, and we would walk the floor and look for editors and art directors, and we would team up to do it. And one year, we finally got to meet with an art director from Hasbro,
Oh
and he
wow.
kind of tuned us in to other art directors and sort of the process of working with them. And a lot of times they're doing game development and they need artists to help them develop games like board games and stuff like that and other toys that they might pitch to the bigger guys over there.
Yeah.
And we got in working with a couple of those guys who were pitching games. So it started as um, helping people pitch different games. Like I did one for the Hulk, where the Hulk, he would swing the Hulk from like a crane or something. He would knock down buildings as part of the
Oh
game.
wow. That's
And
cool.
they were like sort of like a Spider-Man in a barrel, Little Mermaid in a barrel. I did some Transformers trio designs and just a lot of preliminary stuff that no one would ever see.
Yeah.
And then as we sort of moved further into those kind of jobs, a lot of opportunities would come up with other art directors who were. I used to work in boys' toys, and I did a couple GI Joe designs. And there's a creators fair. I don't know if they still do it, but back in the day, they did a creators fair at Hasbro. So I actually got to go to Hasbro, which was just crazy.
That's awesome.
Seeing there's a Mr. Potato Head outside the
Yeah.
offices, and just seeing
Yeah.
that huge Mr. Potato Head was crazy. We like flew to Hasbro for the Creators Fair, Adam and I, and we were so geeked. But we got to present our artwork and talk to a lot of the art directors in house, and we got a couple of decent jobs from that. So we started working for Boys Toys and doing like I said, the Transformers trio stuff. I got to design like a Cobra Commander one
Oh
time.
wow.
Yeah, it was super cool. And those those X-Men designs, like I got to do design work on the X-Men stuff.
Man,
So
that's awesome.
super geeked about that experience for a young illustrator trying to come up. And so that's kind of the process. You really have to like network it out and sort of be fast and savvy to try to get to these people. You really, for any young artist that might be watching, like you wouldn't think that you could get into Hasbro from Comic Con, but you got to realize that a lot of the people that are in hiring positions actually do work for the company at shows, and they're the guys on the floor a lot of times telling people about the games. A lot of times they're the guys that have pitched the game, so they know the most about it. And if the game ever gets actually produced, they're on the floor because it's not, it's a big company, but I think creatively, it's not that big. Like it at least back in the day, it was
Yeah.
small. And this wasn't like, I say back in the day, but this is like 2008, you know? So
Yeah.
so I mean, I guess that's almost 20 years ago, but still,
Yeah.
I don't mean back in the day like in the 80s. It's back in the
I
day to
got you.
me.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
An old man. But it's relatively small in that vein. So if you're at, Wizard World, whatever, and Hasbro has a setup, maybe go there and have your stuff, your art books or whatever, and say, hey man, can I speak? Is there an art director around? Because maybe 7 times out of 10 there actually is. So that's how we kind of scooped that job, that particular job, and just like being really hard nosed about networking at a show. We didn't go for fun, man. We went to like try to get work.
You had hustle for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Well, so I want to kind of rewind a little bit now, and you talk about a lot about being an illustrator. I want to know, what was it as a kid that kind of inspired you to, start drawing and become an artist?
As long as I can remember, I would be at the kitchen table just doodling. Like I don't even remember a time where I wasn't doing that. And think I think it was my mom that kind of inspired me. It seems like she has some kind of latent artistic talent that she just never used.
Yeah,
Because she would be on the phone and she would be doodling grapes and these perfect circles, and then she'd draw a stem, or she'd do like strawberries or apples or something. And I always liked the way that she doodled that stuff, and it would inspire me to like. So now when I'm just kind of mindlessly sitting, I'll draw grapes, you know. And from that, I would sit at the table on my own and I would draw like Michael Jackson and his like thriller jacket, or like Superman flying around punching people or whatever. And I think it started, I would say it started with my mom, and then cartoons, you know. What was really inspiring was that I think it was 87, there was a Superman cartoon. It used to come on Saturday mornings. I have it on DVD now, but like that was one of the coolest cartoons. I thought it was so cool. Like the
yeah,
intro is like amazing, and I love the animation style for it. And sort of like close to GI Joe's animation style, which was really cool.
yeah,
And that stuff, like GI Joe, that Superman cartoon, the old Spider Man and Marvel cartoons, always inspired me to kind of get into more drawing. And then as I moved forward, when I discovered comics, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is the only job I've ever wanted to do. Like, seriously. And it was like the old X-Men classics, like the John Byrne stuff,
yeah,
uh, Claremont stuff, that really kind of got me like, okay, this is a serious. I used to trace comic panels. We'd go to there was the shop called the Bookworm, and it was maybe 3 or 4 miles from our house, and we would walk there as kids. And when I buy a comic, I would just get some typing paper and trace it, and just make like my own stories out of it. Like I cherry pick panels, and say, okay, this panel is working here. I'm gonna put that with this panel, and it'd be like Ron Lim artistry. He'd be the penciler, or John Byrne or Jim Lee or whoever, and it'd be all these different traced art styles to make one comics page, and it was kind of hilarious. So I've always been inspired by superheroes. Is like my main inspiration.
Oh, for sure. Me too. I know as a young kid, my dad had a pretty big comic collection. It was really hard not to just kind of just ask him all sorts of questions about it. Then when he finally let me start reading his comics, man, it was a game changer, man. And he used to, you know, you know, like you said before, you were a kid of the late 80s, early 90s, myself as well. And that was back when grocery stores had a bunch of comic books in the store, and my dad would go shopping, and every time he'd go shopping, I'd be like, what do you got for me, Dad? And he would bring me home, a couple books, just, Batman or Spider-Man or whatever. So yeah, it was good times back then for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I also saw that, in addition to illustrating, you're a writer as well. What was it that kind of inspired you to kind of, start telling stories in a written way instead of just a visual way too?
I was always like I've always been inspired by stories. Like I like to hear stories. I'm a big movie buff. Again, cartoon buff. I read uh, all kinds of books. Listen to audio books when I'm exercising. So just stories are inspiring in general.
Sure.
Um, so I never considered myself a traditional writer because I'm like naturally I gravitate towards drawing and art and illustration and stuff like that. So I didn't really. I've always written my own stories, but sort of like in my head about it, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't get into like actual script writing until I started publishing my own comics, and that was in 2012. And that's when I would record myself coming up with story ideas, and then I would outline them and then hand them over to writers. Right. The first writer that I ever really professionally worked with is a guy named Al Ball. He's amazing. He wrote our first flagship comic, OneNation, and I would hand him these outlines, and he would come back with a script, and then I would edit the scripts to my liking, and that's still the process that we kind of do till this day. And um, like friends of mine would say, "Man, you're always good with like figuring out how to make these stories work." And that's not to say that the writers didn't do it already, but kind of tailor making them to the narratives that I want to tell with these stories. And so I would do that, and then every so often I would rewrite a scene, right, or sort of script doctor a scene. And after a while, I was like, maybe I should just write something just to see if I can do it, just to start getting more confident in it. And the first thing I wrote was our comic OneNation Safe House. And I boarded it out first. And then I went back in and wrote the dialogue and stuff like that. And it was a pretty cool process. And then I started getting more confident after that. And then I feel like only up until maybe now, I feel a little more confident in script writing and actual traditional comic book writing. But it was a long process. I still don't consider myself a writer. Like I'm a writer, in, I guess, on paper. like if it's on my resume, but in
Yeah.
my mind, I'm still just an illustrator. It's a weird thing because I've written stuff now. Like I've
Yeah.
actually professionally written things, but I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's a head trip.
Yeah. I mean, if I what am I trying to say? I've always seen, people who kind of are like that, like I'm not really sure if I should consider myself a writer or not. I've written stuff, but it's like, if you write stuff, you're a writer, no matter
Yeah,
if you've written a couple things or you've written a bunch of stuff. So yeah, you need to give yourself a little bit more credit, man. You definitely, definitely jack of all trades, man. I'll
Yeah, yeah. Now I do take credit for being a jack of all trades. Like
Yeah, yeah,
so a little about 133 Art. We create comics, I illustrate comics, but we also publish our own comics. So we're a
yeah.
self-publishing company, but in part with that self-publishing is printing. So you
Sure.
can see the equipment, some of the supplies back there. But we print our own comics in-house and we do distribution and crowdfunding fulfillment. So for other indie comic imprints, we will print comics, we'll ship them, and for the Kickstarters and other crowdfunders, we fulfill those things too. So yeah, especially when it comes to comics, 133 Art is a one-stop shop, like a jack of all trades kind of deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always kind of like to refer to myself as a jack of all trades, but a master of none. But I ended up seeing on Facebook somewhere that said if you refer to yourself like that, it's just a really nice way of saying you have ADD. And I was like, yeah, I feel attacked, man. So, with your publishing company, like what, because you like you mentioned, you're an illustrator, you're a writer, you do everything inside, one-stop shop for comics. What was it that, you know, led you to like, I need to start what started the whole process of, having your one-stop shop for comics?
It was necessity. So the one thing, it's weird. So we talked about earlier just hustling on the convention floors
Yeah.
and getting concept work and getting illustration work and just hustling within your network, sending out emails and stuff like that. But for comics, it is almost exponentially harder to get your foot in the door,
Sure.
which is weird. Like comics sort of has this uh younger sibling, redheaded stepchild kind of vibe when it comes to out the whole art industry or the
Yeah.
whole book publishing industry.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I've always felt like it was harder to get your foot in the door, especially mainstream wise.
Yeah.
So that's why in 2012 I started doing 133 right. There was little to no avenue for me to get in the mainstream comic book industry. Like we just weren't. I just wasn't getting any callbacks or any. The networking just wasn't working. So I was like, I'm gonna self-publish and publish my own stuff. So it was really necessity. Um, my wife and I, who was also my business partner, uh, we didn't think we could afford printing costs. I was like, if I'm gonna make comics, then I need to be able to sell them and print them if this thing is gonna be sustainable.
Yeah.
And printing costs was just wild for us. And the idea of printing 1,000 books that I didn't know yet how to sell was just ridiculous at that point. So my wife, who is brilliant, who was brilliant in business, she was brilliant back then. Now she has an actual MBA. So she was like, why don't you print them yourself? And I was like, there's no how would I even do that? Like there's even now, there's very little information, even with the vast resources of the internet, on how comic printing is done.
Yeah.
So we did a whole lot of research for months on end, and she was the one that sort of cracked the code. And we ended up buying refurbished equipment, like a refurbished printer, refurbished paper folder, and a saddle stitch machine from like eBay and Amazon and stuff like that. And we spent maybe 1,200 bucks in our initial offerings, and we literally sweated out printing and making comics from that. And at first, we only printed for ourselves, but I was like, if I can get some viable product out there and go to shows and be able to sell them, this would create some kind of return for us.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it did. So that was our first investment was about 1,200 bucks, and we've been printing ever since.
That's awesome. And,
Yeah.
it's starting to become a very common thing where, comic book studios will start to try to take more on in-house to save in costs. Because I can only imagine, with the whatever the cost. So I'm not a comic creator. I don't know any of the ins and outs of the business. I just have a lot of friends that, I've heard stuff from. And, I can only imagine how much it cost back then compared to now. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
it's
Now the price
more.
has gone down significantly, which is cool. And we have a
Yeah.
lot of like there's a lot of printers in the nationally, I mean not nationally, but in the country now that service like indie comic people, like there's Comics Wellspring, and there's sort of like a division of Greco, and Mixum and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ones now where there wasn't back in the day,
Yeah.
and that's really good. You can
Yeah.
now print comics affordably, but back then it wasn't as affordable. And there's a lot of print on demand stuff now too,
Yeah.
and that's great, thankfully.
Yeah.
Um, but back in the day, man, like to get the prices down to a cheaper level, you still have to print an exorbitant amount of comics. And when you're just coming into the game, you don't know that you can sell it, right?
Yeah.
There's no way. You don't have the machines or the apparatus that a Marvel Comics might have.
Sure.
It's just you. Like back then, it was just me and Kimmy. So there was just no way to go to a show and sell 1,000 comics from an unknown imprint.
Yeah.
And now, thankfully, like you like us, we focus on short print runs of 500 or less. So when we started printing for other creators and other imprints, the whole thing was like, you can come to us. You need 60 books for a show. You come to us, we get it to you, and you go make your money off of whatever that is. And I knew, because I was a creator or am a creator, and I knew that desperation, or that that heat on the back of your neck. I got a show coming up, and I could possibly do something,
Yeah.
but there's no way that I'm going to print 500 comics for this show. It doesn't make any sense. So I feel very good about being like a short print run um, provider in that way. But yeah, it was for us, in our opinion, it was expensive back in the day. But thankfully now the temperature is kind of going down. I mean, you still, in order to get a really good price, you still have to print a lot of comics. But thankfully, it's calmed down just a bit, so that's really good.
Yeah, and that's got to be super helpful for, a lot of these creators that, you know, like one that comes to mind is, my friend Danny J. Quick, which I know that you know him very well.
Man, yeah,
Danny and Morgan and Kyron and all those guys, they're taking a lot of that stuff. They're doing the writing and the lettering and, the flats and the art and all that stuff. They're starting to learn how to do more of that in-house. And then, it's nice to have people like you and other people who, like, hey, you have all that. I can take care of the printing for you. It's really cool how everyone's working together like that to try to, make things work because, it seems like there's kind of two schools of thought. Like everyone either kind of just does their own thing and just like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. I don't need anyone. And there's the people that are, trying to get together to just work together and make everything work. And it's really cool how, it seems to be more the latter than the former, where people are getting together and working and just trying to help it be one big community.
it's important to like build community. Like
Yeah,
it's like it's a very positive extension of networking.
for
When
sure.
you could find people that are of like minds that are doing the same thing, and sort of uh, cooperatively come together and say, okay, we want to tackle this beast, because comics is a beast, man. Like it's um it's not for the faint of heart. It's just
Yep.
building that base and getting those fans and getting supporters. Like we're running the Kickstarter right now,
Yeah.
and we're trying to like get to 10K. This would be my first, if it's successful. We have 4 days left. Uh, this would be our first 5-figure Kickstarter, and it's it's important for companies to grow in that way, and we're trying to be very daring and do that. So yeah, it's important to build that community because only through that is the way, is the light at the end of the tunnel, is the way forward. So yeah. And man, shout out to Danny and Kyron. They're doing the Lord's work over there because they're podcasting and they're doing, like, man, Danny's TikTok is crazy.
It's so
Like,
good.
like when I look at when I first started paying attention to his Kickstarter, I mean to his TikTok, I was like, man, wow, like he's so personable and
Yep.
so relatable, and he espouses what it looks like to be a comic creator
Yeah.
so well, and like I'm just in awe because I know that I couldn't do it. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you have a TikTok,
Yeah.
at 133 Art Publishing, go see the TikTok. But our TikTok is a lot of me on podcasts. That's where you will see me sort of
Yeah.
be like that exuberant creative. Because I do get excited about this stuff, but it's
Yeah.
just like staring at the blank camera. Like kudos to Danny, he can come on and just and
Right?
it's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's so needed, especially for like Black creators, right? To see him do that. So shout out to Danny, man. You the man. You the man, Danny.
Yeah, he took a platform that people couldn't make work, and man, he's knocked it out of the park. Like, when he first started all those physical challenges to buy comic books and all the TikTok shop, all that stuff. He's found a great way to utilize this platform it's a growing platform, and he's found a way to make it work, and it's kudos to him for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think he would be a great um marketer.
Oh,
Like
100,
if he
100%.
started like his own firm for like indie comics,
Hmm.
he would knock it out of the park.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would give it.
Absolutely. Okay, now you mentioned you have a Kickstarter going right now, and that Kickstarter is for OneNation Stronghold. This is for the new book, and it's also for a catch up for the previous two books written by another mutual friend of ours, Greg LZ. Why don't we talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about the book, what it's about. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure, sure, sure. So OneNation is 133 Art's flagship title, and it's about a group of superheroes who are also activists, who are also philanthropists, and they work outside an organization called the 10th Foundation. And the 10th Foundation is about changing the world. Like they are trying to affect change by using their abilities and being more of a grassroots kind of thing. Like unlike the MCU Avengers where they work for the government, these guys have created their own sort of grassroots organization to try to use their powers to do good. And Stronghold is an offshoot of that main OneNation series. And Stronghold is about one of the members of the 10th named Damian Strong, obviously, aka Stronghold is his superhero name. And he's a big, burly, strong guy. And from outwardly, he looks like the kind of person that would be super strong and super confident. But what we find out is that he actually has all this past trauma. And he's sent on a mission from the 10th Foundation to look into children that are being kidnapped in his old hometown. He's from New Orleans, Louisiana. And it's a place that he promised he would never go back to. And on this mission, like right before the mission happens, one of his best friends from his hometown dies, and he has to deal with that. So that's already a crushing thing to go back and deal with the death of a beloved friend. Um, and you're trying to stay focused on this mission. And then the reason he never wanted to go back home is because he was abused as a child, and his family, a group of bigots, abused him and his twin sister Daisy, and his family comes back into the picture while he's in town. So he's a mixed race guy. Um, his family forced him and his sister to pass as white, and they went so far as to even straighten their kinky hair to make them look like young white kids.
Oh wow.
Um, and he's traumatized by that, and he's also a gay man. And his family, being bigots, being from the deep south, they weren't into that either. And so he's been dealing with his identity his entire life. That's what we find out. And now all of these ghosts of the past are attacking him at one time while on a superhero style mission to find out what's going on with these kids in New Orleans. And it's a story that jumps back and forth through time, just kind of telling us the origin story and the superhero story of this character.
That's amazing. Now, do you know what the inspiration or the the creation process, how the idea for Damian Strong and the Stronghold story and character kind of came together?
Yeah. So I'm from New Orleans. Um, so a lot of OneNation, like one of the key areas in OneNation in the entire series is New Orleans. Um, the 10th Foundation operates out of LA, and that's because that's where I live now. They're sort of they're aspiring global organization, but the two touch points are New Orleans and Los Angeles. And a lot of Damien's past has to do with me coming up in the deep south as well. Um, we wanted to create inclusivity and diversity in these characters because I feel like activists would be more of a diverse group, especially when they're fighting for the rights of what America actually looks like. So Damien is LGBTQ and mixed race. And we just thought that those layers were um so poignant to to
Yeah.
delve into. Greg, our writer, is also LGBTQ, and he's a great friend of mine. We started working on comics together, kind of sort of around the same time, and I was like, man, maybe this guy can help me flesh out this cool character. And we did it as sort of like an art trade, right? At first, I worked on his character. It's not out of the Were Spider. I did like a pinup for it, and he was like, "Man, we didn't have money at the time to like pay each other back and forth." And he was
Yeah.
like, "Man, can I write like a story for you?" And I was like, "I got just the thing." And it kind of ballooned into this, offshoot series. So a lot of the inspiration of who Damien is and who he ends up being comes from Greg as well. Because when I sent him the initial outline, he comes with like all these different ideas. Greg is like, and one of our artists who was gonna be the artist for the interiors on at first when we first conceived of the series, Jarmel Williams, um, sort of drew Stronghold in this very he was very black when he drew the first sketches of him. And I was like, at first this character might have been a white person. And then when we saw Jarmel's sketches, it was like, no, there's another layer we can add to this cat. And I was like, that's when he became like a mixed race character. And the stuff with his family starts pouring in about about how they treated him and the complexities of growing up in this weird, sort of bigoted, but also religious, also pseudo famous family because these guys have a reality show as well.
Oh wow.
His dad is the patriarch of the family, but it's also sort of this Duck Dynasty. They have like a reality show that talks about their church life and stuff like that. And Damien is fairly affluent in this sort of poor, city. New Orleans is not necessarily an affluent city. So all these layers just start coming in as we collected these creatives to start working on the project. And it's just the inspiration just is still coming to this day. Every time we get a new script, every time Greg and I go back to kind of conceive, okay, what do we do now? Like, how much more can we add to this dude? Um, it just keeps building and building.
That's so cool. Like it's like as soon as you tell me one layer, you got a bunch of other layers to lay in there too. And I think that's so
Yeah,
cool to have this character that's so well developed and so I don't know. That just sounds so awesome. And Greg is such an incredible guy. You know, he's an incredible writer, and that's really cool. It sounds like you guys got a really great story there, and I can't wait to read it.
yeah, man. He. Greg is one of the best out right now. If you haven't, guys, if you haven't experienced It's Not Unaware Spider, definitely go look up Webway Comics,
Oh, for
um,
sure.
and get some of the issues. They're mostly collected in volumes. So there's
Yeah,
about, I want to say, 3 or 4 volumes right now,
I think
and then
so.
there's like bigger, when he makes comics, they're more than like 30 pages, even if
Yeah,
they're not a whole full collected volume. So you get a lot of story. You get a lot of mysticism and just awesome character work coming from Greg. And that extends to the Stronghold series. And man, he's one of my favorite writers right now. I love working with him too. So it's just like a blessing that I get to hang out, create with, my homeboy. So yeah.
yeah, that's gotta be. And it's yeah, Greg's great. It's Nana's a great series. I just got all the I've got all the books. I love them so very much. And yeah, it's always good to create when you're creating something, whether you're writing, art, a combination of both, or it's any kind of anything. It's always a lot better to do it with your friends because it makes it a lot more fun. Especially
Absolutely.
because working alone sucks and it's hard. But when you get to work along with not only someone who's a fellow in creation, but as a friend, that makes it all the more enjoyable for sure.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Now, with the Kickstarter going on right now, is there any other thing you want to talk about with the Kickstarter that, if people, just in case people don't know?
Yes, yes. So a couple things actually. So 133 Art, alongside comics, has been experimenting with apparel and merchandise. So for this Kickstarter, we rolled out a couple of pieces of clothing. We have an all over t-shirt uh, that um, that has like the characters, the 10th Foundation characters versus our villain characters, the Mercs. And let me see if I can share my screen. Share and so as you can see, we have, can they see that?
Yep.
Okay. So Stronghold shirt, and there's Greg modeling it because he's a big muscle dude.
Yes.
Um and the shirts go from small to 2X. But we've been experimenting with really cool merch, really cool apparel. We also have, flip down. We also have a cool hoodie of also the 10th guys.
That's awesome.
Uh, that's another all over thing. Uh, and we have our shoes. So the P1s, we call them, they're the Paragon ones, and our one of our main characters from the OneNation series, Deacon Taylor, aka Paragon. He's sort of like the Superman analog in the book. And we made some shoes, some cool looking shoes from him and his appearances in the comics. As you can see, the eyes are um, on the shoes, his glowing eyes, and it's just like we're creating superhero apparel. and I'm super excited. But also we've been experimenting with merch. So we have the Stronghold Funko Pop.
That's awesome.
Um, and it is like the coolest thing. He's holding like these weights, and we actually added a little alligator character. You can't see it here, but he comes with a little alligator character as well. Because as you know, Damien wrestles alligators, or you may not know, Damien wrestles alligators in the swamps because he's a bayou badass. Um, here he is with like the cheesecake cover with him and his pet alligator. Um,
Awesome.
so we also have a lot of cool variant covers. Um, let's see here. So this is the actual cover of the issue. Damien protecting his younger self from the paparazzi. And we did a lot of variant covers for the issue, as well as there's the cheesecake one again. And we did some crossover covers with other indie creators. And I want to, this is a series that I want to keep going, but various issues of the Stronghold series, including the OneNation series, including Stronghold, we're gonna cross over with other creators. So this is Luna and Stronghold. Luna is from Concrete Comics, Luna series, the Queen of Maru, and there she is right there. And then we crossed over with Mike Watson's Hotshot,
Very
which Mike
nice.
Watson is the illustrator of the cover, and that's
Yeah.
a dope cover, man. It's one of my favorites. Like
Yeah.
Mike Watson is another key figure in indie comics. If you guys don't know about
Yeah.
Mike Watson, go check out Freestyle Comics.
Yeah. He's incredible.
Yeah, he is the man. And we had to cross over with It's Not Out of Where Spider.
That's awesome.
So there's Stronghold and It's Nana. And
Of
there he
course.
is, Ace
There he
Blade.
is.
Yeah, man.
Yes,
So
sir.
Danny J. Quick's Ace Blade, Fourth Wall Productions. If y'all don't know about Danny, y'all better ask somebody. If y'all don't know about Ace Blade, y'all better ask somebody. But I love this whole idea of quick collaborations with my peers, and it's been super fun. The artist that we've been working with, this is from artist Jordi Perez and a colorist homie of ours, Carlos Lopez, who's done work for like Marvel and stuff like that. Um, we just done some really cool crossover work. So if you guys are interested, definitely check out some of the covers there. Um,
And did I see some stickers from David Jackson in there too?
let's see, those are pins actually. Let's
Oh,
see.
they're pins. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go down. So there's one Paragon pin. There we are. So yeah, David Jackson did this Paragon pin, and this Stronghold pin is a similar style, but I actually drew this one.
That's cool.
So yeah, so sometimes I change up the style and whatever. Um, but yeah, we have some cool vinyl pins from OneNation. And we're gonna do more in the series. More characters are coming. Um, I've been working on it on and off. And then we also have trading cards. So the same image on the all over shirt is the image from the first OneNation trading card set called Stronghold, obviously. Um, and that artwork is by comic vet Robert Love, and it's like one of my crowning achievements. The actual packaging from the card is done in house as well. So like we've been experimenting with a whole lot of stuff as a comic book imprint and trying to branch out into creating more products. So
That's
yeah,
cool. And yeah, shout out to Dave Jackson because Dave's done art for a couple of my personal characters, and
yeah,
his style is just so amazing.
yeah. He's like when I saw those, I was like, man, there's some cool stuff. Like
He's
I
super
love
talented.
the chibi aspect of them
Yeah.
when he does that. Like, and I just like how crisp his style is. Like it's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's real
shout
good.
out to Dave.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have to show you. I'll have to dig out my pictures from him later and show you the
Yeah,
characters that he made for me because it's so good.
yeah,
All right, man. So, let's have everyone make sure you check out the Kickstarter. I'll put the link in the comments. We'll put the link up everywhere. We'll get it shared out because we need to get this project funded because this comic
mhm.
looks incredible and all the creators need to get this comic out there so everyone can read it so we can get more.
Yeah.
Now,
We have 4 more days on the campaign, and we're about 60% funded. So we're getting there. Momentum is we built up a little bit of momentum, which is great, but we just need a little more push to get there. And OneNation Stronghold 1 through 3 will be a reality. That's 70 pages of amazing artwork from amazing art team and creative team, and we're almost there, man. We have 125 backers. Usually, our campaigns get about 200 ish, a little bit over sometimes. And I would love to have you guys push us to the point of creation, man. We're almost there.
yes, sir.
Very excited. Give us a Labor Day gift.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with this being issue 3, do you guys have plans for like what's the long-term plan for Stronghold? Is there a bunch of issues? Is there just like a mini series that you're planning to tell?
So
What?
if you ask Greg, he wants to continue Stronghold forever.
Okay.
Like, he keeps coming up with ideas. I'm thinking for this first run of Stronghold, I'm thinking 5 issues.
Okay.
The cool thing about being an indie creator and not being beholden to like a executive editorial team or whatever is that you can do as much as you want, as much as you guys, the base and the fan base, would allow us to do with your support. We
Yeah.
can do. So first things first. But I'm thinking Stronghold for the first series about 5 issues, so 2 more, and then we collect it. But if there's interest, especially, we'll go even further. And OneNation proper, starring Damien, starring Stronghold, and starring Paragon, is and starring the 10th Foundation is an ongoing series. So we're writing that all day, every day. And on the heels of Stronghold 3, we're gonna have another OneNation proper Kickstarter in a few months. So you heard it here first. We're going back in, and I think there's for that next Kickstarter might be 3 issues as well. But these are 3 issues that haven't previously been released. So we're trying to continue the momentum of the OneNation series and serve our fan base.
Very cool. So no fear, there's a bunch more One Nation on the way.
Yes, yes,
Awesome.
yes.
All right. Well, before I let you go, one thing I always like to do is ask whoever I'm talking to leave a little bit of advice, some sage words of wisdom for all the other creators out there. If you could share one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'll share 2.
Okay.
Don't take no for an answer. If you want to make comics for a living, do that, right? Sometimes you might have to take it slow. We took it real slow in the beginning. We started from 1 book. Now we have, I think we're rounding 20 comics right now. 7 series, 20 comics, couple of big graphic novels. So start slow, but start, right? Um, don't be like me and be like, I don't consider myself a writer. If you're a writer, if you're an illustrator, be that. That's the way to do it, right?
Sure.
Second piece of advice: a healthy freelance career can sustain your comics career, and diversifying your streams of income can absolutely help. And with this Kickstarter, crowdfunding, I still do freelance work, publishing and printing, crowdfunding fulfillment. All of those streams help to produce more 133 Art Comics. So be savvy in that way. Hustle if you have to. I used to work a day job, but now I do comics 24/7. And it's only because of that diversifying that I'm able to do that. So second piece of advice, don't be afraid to move into other avenues of creation, being a creator, um, and putting your stuff out there. It's hard, you know what I'm saying? You got to take it slow at first, but if you really want to do this work, it's work.
Yeah, I mean, don't get comfortable because once you get
Yeah,
comfortable, that's when you get
yeah,
complacent and you don't
yeah.
grow. The only way to grow is
Always,
get out
always
there.
be reading, always be listening. Listen to podcasts like your own, and learn from the creators as well. Even me, I've been doing this. I've been doing freelance creation and illustration since 2006 professionally. And I've been a publishing imprint, 133 Art Publishing, since 2012. So it's been a long road, right?
Yeah.
But even to this day, I'm still learning. I'm still reading. You see this book right here. This is How to Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter. Shout out to Russell Nolte.
Oh
Um,
man, another one. He's
Very
incredible, man.
super helpful.
Oh man.
Uh, Shout out to Comics Launch and entities like that. Keep learning. Even me to this day, I'm still learning how to do a successful Kickstarter, and I've done 7. This is Kickstarter number 7 right now. So, if you can do that, you can be successful. You know?
Very cool. Yeah, if you want to learn everything there is to know about Kickstarter, man, Russell,
He
he's
is the man,
he's
right?
a wealth of knowledge, man. He is so good.
Yeah, yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure. All right, now where can we find you on social media? Where can we stay up to date with everything coming from 133 Art?
We are okay. So the hub is 133art.com. You can find all our comics, all our merch, all our apparel. We have a gallery if you're interested in old, older and newer freelance work from just me personally. I have a gallery up there, and my art station is up there. Links to everything that is us is 133art.com. On social media, we're either at 133art or at 133art Publishing. We're on YouTube. Our YouTube page needs way more followers, way more subscribers. So hit up our YouTube. Our TikTok, we're gaining, and it's cool, but the more, the merrier. At 133 Art Publishing on TikTok and Instagram. We're building up Instagram too. At 133 Art Publishing on Instagram. Go there too, but we're on all the relevant social media as well.
Very cool. Now to keep up to date with this interview, lots of other interviews, like James said, if you want to go check out Danny J. Quick, check back a few episodes back. We'll be able to find him back there. Because I talked to him pretty recently and he's pretty great. So definitely go check him out there. Um, Check me out on Fuel It by Weird at YouTube. You can find me wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can find me on the social media or the new app, Spotlight Media GA, along with a bunch of other shows. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Fueled by Weird. You can email me at fueledbyweird@gmail.com. The song for the show is Pizza Force by Polygon Horizon. Go check them out on Bandcamp. They're a great band. And I'd like to take a minute to thank my sponsor, The Zone Collectibles in Tifton, Georgia, your one-stop shop for comics, collectibles, and so much more. Now, myself, the Nerdy Man Room show with Hassel and Monster, Hassel's Review, and Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food have recently started the Stay Weird Network. It's a brand new podcast network dedicated to bringing some awesome back to the internet. You can check us out at Stay Weird Media on YouTube and Instagram, and you can email us at stayweirdmedia@gmail.com. Now, if you like this show, please, leave a review, tell your friends because word of mouth is my friend. And remember, kids, life is too short to be normal, so stay weird. Jason, thanks so much for meeting with me today, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast. It was a blast.